At the height of Split ENZ's glory days in the early 1980s, keyboardist Eddie Rayner felt strangely disconnected during their Mammoth Stadium tours. Back in those days, there was no memory to speak of on the synthesizer, he recalls. So you were constantly twiddling with knobs, and very often, God, I would be playing one song, but thinking about the next, setting it up because you couldn't just press a button. I felt like a technician more than somebody who was getting into the feel of the music and actually responding. Eddie Rayner sees himself as the keeper of Split ENZ's legacy. Photo: Simon Schluter. Rayner is wearing the obligatory rock star shades indoors and a dark green flannel shirt when we meet in Melbourne's Harmer Hall ahead of him performing in Enzo the Songs of Split ENZ, an orchestral rock hybrid show inspired by his 1996 collaboration with the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. Rayner rearranged the Split ENZ back catalogue, including Message to My Girl and 6 Months in a Leaky Boat, despite being unable to read or write music. I can't pretend there was ever any grand plan, he acknowledges of that first iteration. I went back to live in New Zealand after a stint in Melbourne and had just heard about the Rolling Stones orchestral record. Then I heard that the conductor lived just round the corner from me in Auckland, go figure, so I went to see him and he encouraged me to have a go. Eddie Rayner with one of his original Split ENZ outfits, now stored at Arts Centre Melbourne's Performing Arts Collection. Photo: Simon Schluter. Of course, by this point digital technology had transformed the keyboard, with almost every sound and editing function conceivable at Rayner's fingertips. The more knobs the better, he chuckles, as an arched eyebrow escapes the shades. I love trawling through rooms full of old LPs and taking samples. Rayner threw himself into production after stints playing with both Crowded House, an amazing band to play with, and Paul McCartney. I was in the presence of greatness, after Split ENZ went their separate ways in 1984. The split came as a bit of a shock, with Tim Finn leaving first, then his brother Neil shortly after the release of their final album See Ya Round. The Finns came to Rayner's house to hear his first handful of arrangements. They were really blown away, I think, by the sound, Rayner says. I felt that with their kind of papal blessing, I guess, after all the songs were theirs by and large, that it really gave me the impetus to finish an album's worth of material. While the subsequent 96 tour was vast, harnessing the full might of the NZSO and the New Zealand Youth Choir, this month Harmer Hall audiences will be treated to a more intimate affair. Rayner, on keyboard, will be accompanied by a 14-piece band including strings, brass, guitar and drums, as well as guest vocalists Rima Tiwiata, Hunt for the Wilderpeople, Ricky Morris and Phil Madsen. Split ENZ in 1984, the year the band split. From left, Tim Finn, Neil Finn, Nigel Griggs, Noel Crombie, Paul Hester and Eddie Rayner. Photo: Fairfax Media. One of the downsides about the original recording, for me, was the groove, or lack thereof, Rayner says. I wanted the orchestra to have a similar rhythmic feel to the original versions, but I didn't find that was the case. This time round the sound is just right, he says, with the singers adding an extra layer of magic. They are also dedicated Split ENZ fans. They get into the meat of these songs like nobody else, says Rayner. They are so determined to own them and are capable of pulling off fantastic versions of their own. They want to get on stage and perform these songs thinking that Tim and Neil are in the front row and they want to impress them. Rayner says he has never really stepped away from Split ENZ, seeing himself as the keeper of the tapes, constantly working on remixes of the live performances, and with a new album coming out next year. He enjoys taking his time on this production work, so perhaps it's somewhat less surprising that his original band, glam rock outfit Space Waltz, are about to release their sophomore album 43 years after their debut. That's a world record for a follow-up, he laughs. Good things take time, as they say in the cheese-making business. Eddie Rayner's Enzo the Songs of Split ENZ is at Harmer Hall, Arts Centre Melbourne, November 17, artscentremelbourne.com.au.